we don't have the minutes of the May 22nd meeting. We're going to skip over that and move on to consideration for public comments. Were there any public comments? Janie? None? Okay. Then we'll move on to reports. We have Haley Aldridge to report from the other representatives doing the draw site, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair Amspoker. We have Haley and our first one's actually going to be Kaufman and Associates. They are going to be bringing in, or basically since we've hit the middle mark of the industrial park master development plan, this is the plan that goes into the actual 700 acres that we're going through the release process. We must have this development plan in place before we can finalize the EA to release 700 acres completely from the federal obligations. And that will put us in a position to much more easily, how could I say, make it non-aeronautical use and also sell the land. So Kaufman, along with some of their sub-consultants, CNS, J.E. Fuller, and you can just keep going down the list, AECOM, have been working over the past several months to put together road plans, rail plans, even marketing strategies. So we have Corey Lewis. He is the project manager from Kaufman Associates. He is currently online, and I will turn it over to Corey.
So just to be clear, we're skipping over and doing B first, is that correct?
Sorry, yes, apologize.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I apologize. We need to do Kaufman first because they are several time zones ahead of us.
Okay. I don't have a problem. Does anybody? Any have a problem?
No, it shows them first on mine.
Okay.
So I don't know what.
Yeah, right. They changed it around. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, or good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you to present on the Industrial Park Master Development Plan for Kingman Municipal Airport. I just wanted to check to see whether or not you could see my screen okay.
Yes, I believe we can.
Okay, great. All right. As Doug mentioned, we have a project team that includes the following firms. So it's Kaufman Associates. We're working on the land use plan, project coordination, and ultimately the update of the NEPA documentation for the land release project. CNS is also on the team doing civil, rail, utilities, and the property marketing strategy. Sunrise Engineers is working on the water and sanitary sewer aspects of the plan. AECOM is working on traffic, and J.E. Fuller is working on drainage. As Doug mentioned, the part of the impetus for this plan is it's twofold. It's one, to get through the FAA review and approval process for the land release project. So we've initiated an environmental assessment through FAA, but through that process, we actually received comments from FAA legal indicating that we needed a more detailed plan. So the city has taken the opportunity to develop the Industrial Park Master Development Plan, which will serve two purposes: FAA approval, and then also an implementable plan for the 700-acre area. As I mentioned, we received some detailed FAA comments, and they were requesting a description of what would happen after the land release. And this is down to basically preliminary engineering of buildings on the site, and Arnie will touch on that here in a few minutes. And so we've undertaken some preliminary work to get to basically a palette where we can start with the site plan, and from there we'll move into grading plans, drainage plans, and utility plans. So overall, over the last few years, we've been looking at a larger, 1,800 acre release area. In coordination with FAA, it was determined that a smaller area would be more realistic in terms of receiving FAA approval. So with that, we moved to what's largely the 700-acre area at the western edge of that initial land release area. So what you see on the screen here is roughly 700 acres. You can see in red and blue, that's the Rancho Santa Fe alignment, along with its corresponding proposed drainage improvements. And what we've done is we've coordinated with the utilities in the area to identify existing utilities and planned utilities on the site, which we would want to avoid in future development scenarios. And so with that, we've coordinated with a planning advisory committee or a technical advisory committee to receive input on road alignments, on the existing infrastructure in the area. And that group is made up of, like I mentioned, the utilities, but also the city of Kingman and Mojave County representatives, as well as the fire department and a few others, as well as economic development. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Arnie, and he's going to discuss the preliminary site plan that we presented to the technical advisory committee a few weeks ago. And this is basically our launching point into the next phase of the project.
All right, good. So as you can see, we've created 22 lots on approximately 612 acres, using as a boundary as Rancho Santa Fe Parkway, and then the rail on the west, and then the Berry Road on the south. And so we split it up into 22 lots. The initial lots included a 1.7 acre lot for the existing city well down there where Corey's pointing. So we left an area for that. We also kind of subdivided some of the lots to show how they could be potentially developed in the future with the cul-de-sac and with the dashed line. So you can see some of that. All the lots will be able to be like that if we wanted to. It just depends on how we want to plat it. Maybe we have a master developer come in and buy everything. Maybe they're buying smaller lots. But that is just for us to understand and to look at there. Our road configurations were based on the county's road configurations. And so we have two major arterials going through there. We have Industrial Boulevard and let's see, what's Prospector Street? That's Industrial, and that's Prospector Street. And they both tie into the roads to the south. And then we have roads 3, 4, and 5 are classified as local roads, and therefore just to move the traffic through. And we also included a spur to go off to the east to connect to the eastern part when that gets developed in the future. Also, some of our constraints were drainage. Obviously, there's a lot of drainage out there, and I'm not going to take the thunder away from John Aaron and his team, but we did consider that in our design, and we are moving the drainage areas around so we can have the water shed. And what's probably going to happen is we're going to have to make that Rancho Santa Fe drainage channel that's been designed by AECOM a little larger to accommodate the water coming in. So all the water coming from off-site onto the site is going to be collected, so there will be less water on the site. That's going to affect the airport itself also. And then the rail configurations, we came up with some rail configurations. This is based on your existing rail user. That's on the north side. This is their preferred layout. This is not what we have to keep. We can move this around, but we got the transit loading on the west side, and then we have some spurs coming down for people all the way down on the bottom that don't have access to that transit loading side. So, and then we have another spur that comes out around onto Prospector, down to that one, which goes out to the east, and then Prospector 1 there. So we considered all that. We have not laid out all our sewer, water, storm drain, but our intent is to keep our storm drain on the interior and have the lots take up some of the water quality and the detention that's needed, and then the major water that's coming onto the site will run through the channels, the new channels that we're putting in. I don't know if you have any other questions, comments?
Arnie, I just want to state something for the commission. that one large wash that is on the very southern section of the airport, we are looking at pushing that at the very southern boundary of the airport. This will allow us not only to catch the water much sooner before it enters airport property, but also as this develops out, we can start connecting roads into the southern part of the airfield that's not developed. And not having that wash there means we don't have to spend, last estimate I heard was around $400,000 per box culvert to just cross that wash. So it will ultimately allow us to basically ease the access onto the airfield on the undeveloped sections.
I do have a question. Do we have we anticipated any potential needs for any additional crossovers between Route 66 and this area for traffic impact?
That right there is probably going to end up being in the other section, south of us, south of the actual airport. Right now, for us to actually cross over into the industrial park or the future expansion will require crossing BNSF. We're digging basically another underway bypass, so we don't foresee that anytime in the near future.
I meant, as far as what they're planning, is there any like areas that they're looking at that could potentially be used for something in the future if that was to become a thing?
So Doug, if I may, it's my understanding in coordination with Dale and AECom that there is in the future along the Berry Road alignment, that's where a cross would happen, right, kind of at the southern boundary.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to know if there was any, because I'm looking at that map that you have up there, so that's why I was curious. I didn't see anything on there, but that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. So so Arnie, John is not on the call, but John did provide from J.E. Fuller provided the graphic that we're seeing here.
Right.
So, kind of moving beyond the site plan that Arnie shared, we are getting into some other engineering studies, and I'll bring up the list here in a second that some of the sub-consultants are preparing. So J.E. Fuller, who has done a lot of drainage work for the city of Kingman, has done a drainage model for the entire area, and now has worked in some of the preliminary or conceptual drainage features that could be added to the site. As Doug mentioned, I guess stepping back overall, drainage. The primary drainage pattern is from the southeast to the northwest and coming across this site. There are two places at which the drainage goes currently underneath the tracks. We have the one up here to the north and an existing one to the south. And then, as you're aware, right south of the airfield, there is a drainage, kind of a berm that routes flows this way. What we're seeing here is a modeled concept that, as Doug mentioned, collecting a lot of these flows from south of the airport or south of the study area and routing them through the flows that come from east of the proposed Rancho Santa Fe, routing those around here and then into the drainage improvements that are west of Rancho Santa Fe, and then similarly having a channel here to the south of the Berry Road alignment and working those flows over to the west and then routing them underneath and over toward Route 66 area. So as I mentioned, kind of moving forward from the conceptual site, the parcel layout that Arnie presented on, now we are going to step into doing building layouts and conceptual grading. As I mentioned, the drainage master plan, we've actually already made considerable progress there. AECom, who's doing the transportation modeling for the Rancho Santa Fe project, is also on our team, and they will be doing transportation modeling as part of this effort. As Arnie mentioned, we've done some railway study. CNS is also going to work on some rail alignments. We've been in communication with, in coordination with BNSF, who manages the tracks to the west of the west of the project site, as well as Patriot Rail. So we've had a few discussions about that, and so we kind of have understanding of what a potential rail rail layout could look like. But really that is going to be driven based on that property marketing strategy. So CNS has conducted a lot of interviews with potential developers and economic development parties to kind of get an understanding of what type of development may occur in this area. And so that's going to really kind of drive the types of buildings that we're going to use in our layouts, and ultimately having a better understanding of how many rail served parcels do we need, and kind of how much land do we need to set aside for rail infrastructure. So, and then ultimately, once we're able to complete this bit of the plan, then kind of beyond that, we'll be looking at development standards and kind of a unified look for and feel for the development in the area. But kind of everything, all those preliminary engineering tasks are really what we need, the type of information we need to get the FAA approval for the environmental assessment. So at this point, this is just a general list of the major milestones. So we're past this conceptual site plan. We've initiated our engineering reports. As I mentioned, we've also started the property marketing strategy, and we're working toward that draft industrial park master development plan. And with that, we'll be able to move into the NEPA document revisions, and then the development standards, and finalizing the master development plan. Welcome any questions.
I have a question, maybe it's for Doug. Just to get some clarification, where are we with the FAA approval for release on this, or what has to happen for them to totally sign off, or has that already happened yet?
No, when we were doing the environmental assessment, the actual EA, the NEPA process, further on down the road, they made, or they requested no longer a conceptual use plan for the industrial park. They wanted a full-blown development plan, grading, roads, utilities, you name it, everything.
Which is kind of what this is heading towards right now.
This is what this is.
Yeah.
This is the key piece that we need to get completed, along with marketing. Because as you hear marketing's in here, because that's another request that the FAA approached the city with, was actually develop a marketing plan and find out who's going to be potentially most likely using that area. So they're going to take this, and Kaufman's going to add this once we get this completed into the EA, and then we're immediately going to turn around and get that moving forward again.
So the big sticking point for them, if I recall, was that with such a big area, they weren't used to releasing that much property at a time. Wasn't that one of the big things in the beginning? They were,
yes.
So they wanted more of a plan. Do they keep moving the goalpost, or are they saying, hey, get this done and we'll release the property? Or
this is the final area where they said that we'll release the property. Yeah, the size of the lease or release was really big and very hard for them to digest. And then also just the cost of a master development plan. There's a lot of engineering, so it was extremely expensive. So it was just best to kind of bring it down to a smaller section, to 700 acres. And then in the future, we could probably looking at releasing the other sections as we develop this portion, which these Kaufman and CNS and their team have developed a road plan for the other 1,100 acres, just kind of get that in the way to not only access the additional 1,100 acres in the future, but also access the airfield from the opposite end of the property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So I have a question on the drainage, actually. I think it was partially discussed, but this is looking at any potential development in the future being able to handle the water that comes from those areas as well, correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, so we're picking up all the offsite water, as you can see down on the bottom, bringing it into the Rancho Santa Fe channel. And then the on-site water that's there, so now every drop of water that falls onto the site will be picked up into a a master storm drain system that will flow into those channels. And then each individual parcel will be required to either have some detention and water quality for their systems going forward. So we're gonna, base it on what type of development would be there when we get there. So say if 70% of the lot is covered with parking lots and buildings and stuff like that, we would use that as our pervious surface and our impervious surface to be able to have the drainage flow and work. But we are putting some of that drainage on the backs of the developers that are coming in there. So the infrastructure for the city would be less.
How far does that go exactly? Like, does it just go up to I-40, or does it extend all the way up into the foothills of the mountains in the surrounding area?
That's a good question. I don't know how far up that goes.
May I just,
Go ahead, Doug.
oh, I was about to say, when they actually came up with a lot of this drainage, they did use the most updated Flow 2D map by the city, and then the county's still working on theirs, so all that information, they're using all that from the county and the city's drainage to kind of help them gauge and assess and predict future to the best they can. Also want to make another statement. These Kaufman and the group, they also kind of work with a technical advisory committee, and that is professionals from the city and the county, such as county maintenance, engineering, city sewage, marketing, economic development for both the city and the county, and then county public works for roads. So they're getting everybody that puts in those standards, including county flood control. And a couple of weeks ago, we met with them, send them the plans, and they provided comments back regarding what needs to be done, or they're going to need further information on their questions for them to determine if they like the route it's going, if it's going to comply with their rules. So we are keeping any type of other organizations that could dictate the structure, design, so forth, involved in this.
Does Kaufman and Associates have anything else to add?
No, but we're happy to answer any other questions, and look forward to coming back before you to give you an update at your next one of your future meetings.
What is the hopeful time frame, I guess, for this to, however far it has to be done, to then go to the FAA and have them go, okay, that looks good?
You know what, I'm going to pawn it off on Corey because he is the
Yeah.
specialist in this.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the sooner, so right now we're at a point where we can start getting into that, a little more engineering detail on the civil side. So Arnie's group is working on those building layouts, hoping to have that kind of pulled together here in the near future. I don't want to put any words in Arnie's mouth as the timeline of that. But then, from there, we can start talking with our, our dry utilities and getting them to work on their parts of the plan. So once we know where the buildings are, then we can look at our water and wastewater utilities. So hopefully we'll have that, a more filled out plan in September. And then, probably we'll schedule a meeting with FAA to kind of give them a look at it, and then kind of work toward developing the draft industrial park master development plan. And that's going to be the key document where FAA actually sees, a report. They can actually look through it and see that we're saying we're building X number of buildings. And a big kind of sticking point for FAA is, what's your depth of excavation? What are we doing with all the grading? All the earthwork elements of it, because we actually have to use the information here to provide the additional detail in the NEPA document. And so FAA legal is saying, it's fine to have this concept, but when you do a NEPA document, we're talking about, when I typically do a NEPA document, we're doing it for a warehouse of a certain size, 450,000 square feet. We know all the parking requirements there. They want that level of detail as if, as if somebody was actually coming for, approval of a development at the airport. Obviously, we're looking at 700 acres, pretty conceptual at this time, but they actually want that, kind of project level detail for a, not yet to be realized industrial park. So, so once we do have that draft industrial park master development plan later this fall, then we'll, have that level of detail that we can start updating the NEPA document and hopefully move forward through FAA's NEPA review process and then ultimately the land release process.
So how does that work if you have all the conceptual building sizes and locations and all that, and then some other large corporation comes in? I know the FAA signs off on it and it's kind of a done deal, but are you tied to any certain buildings at that point, or can you just come in and some other corporation wants, 3 times the size of an existing lot for something else? How does that work?
We will need to continue to coordinate with FAA on that. That question has come up. We're going with, what is, we're using this market strategy information. That's going to help us define some of these lots and what is realistic. I mean, obviously there are some uses that are not yet contemplated. Some large scale. Here in the community where I live, we have a massive Panasonic battery manufacturing facility going in. There's going to be some things like that. We usually in a NEPA approval process, there is a provision where you can go back and say, okay, well, we thought it was going to be this, but now it's going to be this. And you basically do a supplemental letter just to explain that, okay, well, if we took all the impacts that we talked about in the first document, now rather than kind of spread out over X area, it's more concentrated over in this area, then we feel that we can make calculations to say that the impacts are relatively the same compared to the original NEPA document, and then FAA responds and says, yes, we agree with that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that supplemental EA process happens routinely. Project proponent comes in and says they want to do this. Whatever their financing doesn't happen, but somebody else comes in and does something else. We're doing that for like a hotel project right now. So
I have one last drainage question. Is this 100% diversion, or is there any catchment involved?
There's some catchment involved on site. So we're diverting everything that is coming onto the site, from Berry going north, and then the other drainage channel, and then there will be some catchment inside the areas itself for its individual lot.
Can you show us the drainage basin on the map there?
So Arnie, we have this, we're talking about this facility.
Yeah, we kind of set aside that area down there. We don't know if we need it that large yet because we haven't modeled the on-site stuff. We modeled the off-site based on it, and now we're going to go into modeling the on-site stuff, on-site lots and everything, and find out exactly how much detention we need for the off-site flows coming on.
Because we've got a really nice catch basin over
Right.
Off of Mojave Airport, across from the Cotter and Company, that hardly ever fills up, but it's in a good location and it seems to do its job. I was wondering about if this is going to all drain from this area into this new catch basin, or is it some of it going to go into the catch basin over across from Cotter and Company? The True Value.
So everything is going to flow into along the rail where the existing flow is right now. There's going to be a culvert down there, and then also along the Rancho Santa Fe channel. and then it's going to cross over a dry wash off there in the beginning, and then that we're going to have some type of weir once we add our water into it. And then it's going to go into that same basin, and everything flows to that area up there, adjacent to the rail.
Thank
I
you.
hope I answered your question. I hope I answered your question there.
Yes, it does. Does anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Gerlach, do you have anything you want to? We don't want you to feel left out.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your report.
All right, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to present. And if you do have any other questions, you can send them to Doug and we can respond for you.
Moving forward.
Thank you very much, Corey and Arnie, for that information.
All right, thank you, Doug.
And I believe you're going to have to probably click on stop sharing your screen.
I am looking for the. Doug, I'm going to have to leave, I think, because I don't see the stop share button.
Yeah. Yeah, no big deal. I do appreciate it. You guys don't have to stick around because I know Arnie's 3 to 4 hours ahead of us, somewhere along there.
Oh, here we go. Okay, now I got it.
All right. And the next presentation is going to be Draw's presentation by Haley and Aldridge. They'll give you an update of where they are and their and when where they are and also what the timelines are, and just give you guys a little bit more input on a $52.5 million project. Well, if you want to.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Pejman Ishraga. I'm the project manager for the Dross site remediation. Closer. Is it better?
Yes.
I'm the project manager for the Dross site remediation. We're working with a group of our construction project managers. We're working with the environmental side, and we have just started the commence with the remediation. So this week, we're removing the base course from the project, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that is going to follow. I don't know. I think the best place is maybe give you guys some background, if it's okay, about the project, and it'll be short because I know all of you are aware of the project. I came to this project in 2013. And this was right when the city was looking at the issues that are coming out with the Dross, with the tarmac, all the bumps, all the raised areas, and I'm sure you guys have all seen that. From 2013 to about 2021, we investigated the area. We put 153 soil borings in just about every grid of the Dross site, about 15 acres in total. And what we discovered was sometime about 2000, a contractor was brought in on site and buried the Dross unevenly in various locations at the Dross site. The report says 8 parallel trenches that was dug and the truss was put in there and evenly compacted, but that's not what we found. The Dross, as you know, is aluminum production waste that was generated as part of smelting of aircrafts as they were cut up and melted for their aluminum content. The dross is basically the froth that floats to the top that is not usable, and it's skimmed and continuously removed from the aluminum. And as part of it being deposited onto the ground, gets mixed with the soil in various degrees. It's very black. It could be purple. Sometimes it's light gray, but in general has a very strong pigment. And when it mixes with beige to red soils that you see in Kingman, it has very little of it would take to change the color of the soil. So you can visually see what it looks like. The photo that you see here is basically when, this is January, February of 2000, where the dross was being buried. The black material is the dross. It's pretty much across the board. It is that color. The white that you see is just frost at that time. There was some frost on the slopes of the excavation. So, following our investigation, in conjunction with working with CNS engineers, this is the excavation zone that we see. So this doesn't look at all like the 8 parallel trenches that was reported that was done at the site. The depths are anywhere from, they start literally at the surface right below the asphalt, and they vary in thickness to about a foot in thickness, or sometimes as deep as 16 feet. So that's what we're basically excavating right now. As far as the locations, we are using GPS, and all of our equipments have GPS. The site has been surveyed by CNS engineers. All the survey material has been incorporated into our equipment, so we know exactly where we're going and digging. The city council last year expressed a desire to see if we can use train to reduce traffic. The trucking would have been very difficult. There's too many trucks, and I-40 is already congested. The trucks would have had to come from the airport, gone through the industrial park, went to I-40, and then went to Las Vegas. So in the couple of pinch points, 93, Andy Devine would have been just really, really busy with traffic. We understood that, and we worked with our contractor, Clean Harbors, and they work with Kingman Terminal Railways, and they came up with a plan to use the new transload facilities, which I don't know if you guys have seen, but a new transload facility came online, and we installed our transloading facility on that parcel of land. It's already built. We're ready to go. There are gondolas that are going to be loaded up with waste, and about 5 truckloads per gondola, per train gondola. So about 7 gondolas at a time. We'll leave the site on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, reducing traffic entirely, and everything will be done with trains. The disposal facility is in Oklahoma, so it's leaving Arizona, going to Oklahoma.
So you're using Patriot Rail some?
Yes, so Patriot Rail we load up on Patriot Rail's transload facility, then Patriot Rail will take 7 gondolas at a time, 5 to 7 gondolas at a time, and basically connected to BNSF. And then from the connection, BNSF will take it. It's a one-stop travel. Goes in one trip, it goes to Oklahoma, and then we'll pick it up from there, and another transport train will take it to the landfill.
Thank you.
So the timeline, we started working on this in August with the help of all the tenants, around the DDA, not mention anybody by name. We we appreciate everybody, you know, helping in and removing all their aircrafts, and it's cleared out, and we removed the asphalt last week, and we're going to start removing the base course, which is just below the asphalt. It's soil that has been treated with lime and fly ash, so it's a little bit compacted. Once we remove that, then we start going to dig up all the waste and take it off-site.
Over by the two hangars that are on Taxiway Bravo is where the ovens were.
Yes.
Is there any effort to save the bricks from the ovens, or are they all going to be demolished?
I can save as many of them as we can. The bricks are, one of them is in the terminal, and that one was in really good shape. Of the 20, 30 bricks we pulled out that day, that one was the most competent one. And if you quickly, you know, clear coat it, it holds together. So we'll see how many of them that we can save that are whole, that you can see the marks.
Well, I was thinking that they might be something that would be interesting for a future development of a museum or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There should be plenty. So we know there is a floor, there's a concrete floor at about 6 feet below ground. There are concrete walls, and there were 3 furnaces, and each of them had these bay areas in front of the furnaces. I think in the back of it, the back wall, the southern wall, not the southern wall, the western wall of the furnaces, that's where all the bricks are. And there's quite a bit of them, but we gotta kind of be very careful and handle them with care, because sometimes the ammonia gas and other gases would break them up. So some of them you can just it crumbles depending on. There's 4 types of bricks. So the one that we have at the terminal was the one that was most competent. Some of the lighter shades of it seems to be falling apart. So they're different vintages, different material. So.
And they were never meant to be permanent anyway, so how are they, some of these bricks probably were just designed to get the job done and
That's correct, that's
move
correct.
on, yeah.
So I think the dark ones, we try to save as many of those because they have the writings and they have some pedigree value. So at some point, I want to say about December or so, we should be done with the main part of the digging. At least that's our plan, and backfilling. After that, the data will come in, the laboratory data will come in, and we get busy writing the report. Parallel to that, our guys are still removing waste. So the waste is being removed several months after the actual work, the actual act of digging up and backfilling and compacting has ended. And then we're targeting for about June, July of 2024 for the report to go to ADQ for review and knock on wood, closure of the site. And then by then we should have most of the work done, most of the tarmac, all the completion of the rest of the project.
And how thick is the asphalt projected to be?
4 inches. At the tarmac, 4 inches.
Good.
With a 10-inch of engineered subgrade aggregate base course.
Anybody have some questions?
Chair Amsbooker, I also want to notify the commission of this. Jack Plonte, the Assistant Director of Public Works, he actually looked into another project that's inside the city that's south of the airport. It's near Airway Avenue. It's the Vista Bella Drainage Project. And we are looking at removing dirt in that area that's already been designated as being removed and use that as backfill This does two things. This not only saves the airport and this project a little bit additional cash because they're not actually purchasing it from a quarry. They're also going to be using back roads, and they're going to go ahead and remove the dirt for that project. So in the future, when that one's ready to start off, they don't have to worry about paying for excavation.
Sure.
So it's also going to benefit that section of the community as well.
I think that's a good use of city resources. Does anybody have some questions? Commissioner Gerlach, do you have any questions? Maybe-
No, I'm just pleased to see this finally moving forward, and it's really encouraging. I'm very happy with it.
Yes, it's kind of been long awaited. So,
It already looks better right now than it did, than it did for years. Just looking at the kind of sort of flat, all the same
Yeah,
color, no loose gravel.
I was out there Saturday looking around, and I noticed that you left a couple of the large, I call them mini volcanoes, but I was just curious why you left those in the middle and you took all the asphalt around them.
We'll take them off. The equipment operator was not comfortable moving the milling machine over those.
I see.
You just
I
don't
don't
know.
blame him. Also, there's another small one over to the, would be probably the southwest side of the two hangars that are facing Taxiway Bravo.
Okay, one
And-
more of those
You're aware of those?
bumps. Yes.
Good.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And
Thank you. Oh,
Chair, Amswicker also let you know, in the process, when they were milling up the asphalt, they did come across a huge piece of aluminum with other contaminants that are mixed in. And it's a pretty sizable chunk. They went ahead and decontaminated it, that piece of aluminum, and now it sits right next to the brick inside the airport. So we may be coming across these items, or they may be coming across these other types of items as they start excavating.
Sure. It wouldn't be surprising at all.
So I know to you guys, this is just a big infrastructure thing, but some of these pieces are of interest to the history of the airport and all that, and we don't want to slow you down in what you're doing, but things like that could be shoved to the side, and we could do something with it later, you know?
I'll let Simon know. He's
Yeah.
our
Okay.
on-site assistant project manager. He's
Right.
With that being said, is there extra cost associated with that? Like, if there is, how much is it? Or is it negligible?
No, you mean just separating any artifacts and putting them aside?
Correct.
No, there is none.
Anything else, anyone? Well, thank you for your report. We're grateful.
I appreciate it. Thank you so
We're
much.
really grateful that you're here doing it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Commissioners, for the Airport Industrial Park Report, apologize, came across a few little issues this weekend. I was unable to mail this out to you guys. I will be getting you a copy of this in your inbox after this meeting. For the Airport Activity Report, Airport Business Development, we have finally completed the lease of 4800 Flightline Drive to a brand-new flight school. They are making an adjustment to their name. They're providing services from everywhere from private all the way up to commercial. We've already had some pilots that have flown in to refuel their aircraft, and we're talking about that, and they did not realize that this group also provides float plane training. So just some of our transient pilots that came through have requested their information. Right now, it's Northtown Shebley Aviation, but they are going to change their name to reflect more of Kingman with Route 66. So we have already received a bunch of inquiries about the new flight school, and it's already been extremely positive. A few times I've went into the restaurant, the terminal area, or in the pilot's lounge area. Some of these pilots that were in there were going through their oral testing with the FAA, and a lot of people do not realize this, but a lot of these pilots come throughout the United States. Some of these groups came in from Alaska to finish up some of their additional ratings during the wintertime. And so it's more than just targeting just our community, but it's also bringing in people throughout the United States and bringing them here to Kingman for their training. And then we benefit with the rental space, rental houses, hotels, them using our restaurants, museums, and traveling around the area. So it's benefiting a lot more than just the airport. It's a small benefit for the entire community.
Do you know what their name's going to be?
Do not quote
Okay.
me on this one, but I think it's going to be Shebley 66 in honor of Route 66, but they may make a minor adjustment with the name. But they are making the change to reflect more on the environment of Kingman, and to make it, how could I say, let people know when they look it up, this is where they're going. They're going to the heart of Route 66. For airport projects, taxiway B project, 100% design. We may have a chance, and we're trying to schedule a meeting with multiple engineers to get this project moving forward a little bit sooner. We're letting this draw site, the original kickoff for the draws, go run its course so we can see if there's any hiccups, any further hurdles. But as soon as we go through that phase and it gets a little bit more stable, steady, then we're going to be working with our other engineers to see if we can start moving forward the Bravo project without causing, how could I say, any really further discomfort to our tenants that use the area. So there is a chance we may move this project forward a lot sooner. Terminal landscaping and renovation. For the renovation, the bathrooms are pretty much complete. It is punch list items. The next phase is going to be the windows. So they're going out there, they're getting new quotes to update the windows. Currently, the windows are single pane, and everybody knows how that is when the sun goes through there, it bakes everybody on the inside. So it's eventually going to help out with environmental inside of the terminal building, plus they're going to have to do some additional work with the HVAC system. Currently, the women's restroom has no heating or cooling. So during the wintertime, if you use a restroom, it's pretty cold. So that's the two areas that they're going to have to, that we're targeting next. We're also going to turn around and start looking at the actual walkways and paths on the air side. Reality, just the landscaping on the air side, and start moving that forward to get that addressed and clean up those rocks. As for the drainage in front, through last night's or Friday storm, which usually storm like that at the airport, where the water was coming right up next to the runway and including going over the runway a little bit. Usually that terminal building would flood, but right now we did not see any signs of flooding. So it appears that ditch work grading has very much helped out on that front.
How about the D row of hangars? Do they flood?
I did not check on D Road, but I'm pretty sure that probably D Road did get some water that went through it. Runway 1735 and taxiway Charlie P608 application. This was a ADOT grant, pavement management program grant that extends the life of the pavement. It is, for the most part, the work is complete. There was an incident at the BLM gate on the northern end where one of their trucks hit the gate. Gate is temporarily closed, and turns out it's going to be roughly 6 months to have a new gate created. The contractor will be paying for this, not us. We're really happy they just hit the gate and not damage the motor, because it would have turned into a $30,000 project for just one gate. Drainage study, as you guys heard in the presentation regarding the industrial park master development plan, now you kind of see why we pump the brakes a little bit on this, because all that water south of the airport eventually makes its way onto the airport. With that project, with those studies, they're forwarding that information to CNS, their aviation side, which is taking those models and incorporating them into the airfield master drainage studies. So they're linking those two projects together in anticipation of the development in the industrial park with all the new asphalt, concrete, future drainage. They're modeling that into the actual air side, which is further downstream. Gate code changes is 100% in effect. As we tell everybody, please do not share those gate codes. We are coming across where some people are coming into the airport, and we have to verify that there is a need for them to have the gate codes. But for the most part, the transition has been very smooth. Taxiway Delta Rehab. All surveying has been complete. They did some core drilling, and they're finalizing their geotechnical data for that section of the project. Where hopefully we'll start seeing plans here coming up here in the next month or so for the Delta redesign. Taxiway C hangar, East Rose. Over the summer, we started hearing some requests from those tenants that the actual weather seal underneath the hangars has eroded. And we went through, took a tour of a few of the hangars and saw where the sand was coming in and entering some of the hangars. Staff has replaced some of those weather seals. They still have some more to do. It is very much time consuming and it's very hot. I've seen those poor guys, they were sweating. I had to tell them to back away at 7 o'clock in the morning because it is the difficult job, a lot harder than we expected. But they are kind of nitpicking at that as they go along, knock out one hangar here, one hangar there. In that process, with that, they're kind of looking at some other requests from other tenants in the hangars. They're starting to see a little bit of door issues popping up, where some of these hangars have been around for what, 10, 15 more years, and their doors are starting to stop. And the guys, maintenance guys, have been working on this for several months to a year. We have called in electricians, we have called in door specialists, and our ultimate goal is getting this resolved. There has been some theories and possibilities of what's causing the problems.
What rows are those?
It's a mixture. Right now, majority of them are occurring in C.
C row?
C row, some are actually occurring here and there in B. Some of it's just going through and tightening connector switches.
Well, those are over 25 years old, so
Okay.
they've been there a while.
Been there for a while. Well, some of the connectors, they replaced some of the connectors inside the hangars. They have replaced transformers. They're doing a lot of work to try to figure out what the problems are. They're resolving some of these doors, some of these hangars issues. Others have smaller lingering problems. So we're doing what we can do for the tenants inside those hangars, move them over to another hangar nearby temporarily until we could get their permanent hangar issues resolved. EA gate, pedestrian gate. There has been a request from some of our other tenants requesting a pedestrian gate to be installed near the EAA hangar. Staff has released or send out a request for quotes. They're still receiving those quotes from businesses, and discussions have been made on it, how can we save money. We looked at some of our current pedestrian gates that we have stashed off to the side. There are some concerns going out there and using one of those other gates. Will they be properly warranted? Some of those gates have been sawed off at their leg. How much is going to cost to fit another sleeve over there? So there are discussions on getting how to make this project cheaper, but it is moving forward. Hopefully here we'll have a contractor selected within under the next month, and we get that moving.
I have a question. Are there any other complaints or feedback from the airport users, or is this pretty much covering all of that
For the pedestrians?
in general?
In general, no, I wouldn't say we receive complaints. We receive a lot of recommendations from our users.
Are there any that are like frequently occurring that people or a large group of people are bringing up?
We do have one that we're gonna knock out this EAA project. We're gonna flip around and start addressing it as soon as we knock out the EAA project. That is addressing 2 roadways entering the airfield, one by the T hangars and then one by the EAA hangar. So that's other projects that we're gonna have to tag on there, but those are gonna be a little bit more extensive on the cost of those projects. It is going to be repaving a lot of the roads near our keypads for those areas.
Yeah, those are troublesome, and they all come, well, it's hard to keep rocks off the aircraft operating areas, obviously, but those, you can pick up stuff on those entrance gates, as they go in and try to mitigate little pebbles and rocks and stuff from being picked up by propellers and things, but.
When we were actually looking at that project several months back, we originally were thinking that it would just be asphalt, but it's not. It's going to have to be concrete because that's considered a commercial area. So that's going to require probably an RFP. We may even, if we have a JOC contract out there that we're trying to look for, to where we could select a company based on the cities already went through the RFP process. We're going to try selecting them and getting them out there and taking a look at it. We're hoping there's JOC out there, make it a lot easier on us. But no, it is something that we are tagging. That's the other larger issue. But for the most part, those are really the two major projects that we're hearing now being requested by our tenants.
Okay, yeah, because like I said before, my thing is safety, and then whatever we can get as a return on investment, whatever we can do to bring in some extra revenue from sales or whatever we need to do to increase usages and get more money out of it, I'm all for it. So that's what I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Well, this, I'll be honest with you, this JAWS project is going to open up a lot. We're going to have a brand new ramp. It's not going to be 2 inches of asphalt. It's going to be 4 inches of asphalt. And it's going to increase our storage area. It's going to increase our pilots able to actually taxi in those areas without worrying about damaging their propellers or damaging their landing gears. So, and those properties along that edge that haven't been developed, that will open them up for development. So that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge difference when that happens.
I know I'm not a pilot, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all these good things happening. So thank you.
Come on out and I'll show you all that area. So.
We'll give you another tour.
I appreciate it.
FAA land release. You guys already heard how the industrial park is kind of connecting into that with the master development plan and with the land release. So I'm just not going to spit back out what they just stated. May make a wrong statement and contradict what the expert said. So I'm going to avoid that one with a passion at this present time. Hangar occupancy wait list. 5 executive hangars with all five occupied, 5 on the wait list. B and C hangars, out of the 30, 27 are occupied. So we have 3 that are open at this present time. We have reached out to individuals, and what we've came across out of the 13 on the wait list, they don't have aircraft. Or we're going back to them. It's going to be 6 months before they're able to get here. It seems a little bit odd case if we have somebody who does get an aircraft in time and they want that hangar, and we said, no, we got to wait 6 months for another person. No. So we're trying to be fair in this, especially for our citizens and guests, because as you guys know, that a lot of people that don't live in Kingman actually store their aircraft here, keep their aircraft here. We're trying to be fair to them and be reasonable, but at this time, a lot of those pilots, when we speak to them, they're in the process of trying to look to purchase an aircraft, but they do not have one currently at this time. And in their mind, they were thinking that these wait lists will be several years out, and that'll give them time to get an aircraft.
So if I understand you correctly, the 13 on the wait list have all been contacted, and none of them have an aircraft at this time. And some of them have been on that wait list for a while?
Years,
Years?
I wouldn't say years, some of them have
at least a year.
at least
least a
1
year.
year, at least 1 year. And what we're kind of discovering is that we have these, it's not it's not like one person leaves a hangar. Don't know why, but it's kind of like a little group thing. I've noticed that since I've been here, where you have 2 or 3 or 4 that will leave, and then we'll immediately fill it back up. We had some turnover recently where some pilots were leaving out of hangars, selling their aircraft. So that kind of opened up several little groups. On one hand, this has kind of been a little bit of a blessing for some of our tenants that are in those problematic hangars, where we're kind of moving them over to the other hangars until we get this issue resolved.
So, speaking on the wait times and everything, what is our current capacity for aircraft storage, and are we close to meeting that capacity?
I will tell you this, we currently have a little over 340 stored aircraft on the airfield. I can't give you an exact amount of aircraft storage where we could park it out there. That's kind of a little bit of a questionable area. One is going to be, how could I say, if you want to try to entice one of our storage tenants to ground harden some of the area, could greatly increase the amount of storage. Or if they could put down some Munson mats, which are steel mats that you put down, you roll the landing gears on. But ground hardening is extremely expensive. I've seen estimates out there for just probably around 60 acres being $3 million. And it's not really that long term. You're only looking at about 15 years before you have to start doing something to it to get it hardened back up. But we do leave that out there for our storage tenants. If they're willing to harden the ground and use that, then we'll give them some type of rebate till they can make up their cost. But as for the amount of aircraft storage, we could probably easily double the amount of storage on the facility, possibly even more. Please keep in mind, if need be, we could always push the fence back and add additional space for storage.
You mentioned 344 aircraft. Is that including the GA aircraft, or is that only the long-term storage for commercial aviation?
That is just long-term storage.
Okay.
It's over 340.
So, is any of this being looked at, like, as a potential for the expansion if, with the master development plan or any of that?
With the master development plan is, right now, a lot of our building and construction is on the west side of the airport, where those available properties right next to a ramp. We are looking at still keeping the areas that are away from that area as possible storage. Due to the nature of storage, aircraft storage, you really don't have to put that on a master plan. Actually, you really don't even have to put that at all, because you're not doing any type of permanent infrastructure changes to the airfield.
Well, I guess the thought that I had was with the drainage as well, because if you're hardening the ground, it's going to make it less permeable for the water to be able to soak in, so you're going to have a lot more runoff. So that's why I was kind of curious.
It is going to have a lot more runoffs, and that is one discussion that we are having with our airport, our consultants that actually are doing the infield of the airport master drainage study. But at this time, nobody has reached out to us on that information, on possibly ground hardening at this time.
Do you guys market it out there that companies can do something like that if they wish to have more storage here?
We have reached out to our current storage companies. We've had, every now and then we'll have larger aircraft repair facilities that are looking around in the area for possibly moving their business. We have mentioned that upside to where you could build a larger hangar for your actual maintenance activities. At the same time, you could do some ground hardening out in the airfield to where if you want to store aircraft and cannibalize them for your newer fleets or newer parts or older aircraft, you have that ability too.
Have we had to turn anyone away?
No. No, we have not. Nobody, believe me, nobody who has looked there for bringing in their business has been turned away. If anything, we have done everything we could to try to entice them. It's like any other city. It's very, very competitive in the aviation industry to where they're not just looking at our airports, but they're also looking at Henderson. They're also looking at Pinell Airport. They're looking all over the place. And we're just doing what we can do to show that Kingman is the ideal place for them. With
this many stored aircraft, obviously the cash flow has gone up a fair chunk the last, let's say, couple of years, whatever. Is there, this could be an area for other meetings, I suppose, but is there a thought on just the big picture of this money? Is it socked away for a rainy day? Is it, hey, we should invest some of this on the airport? Or, you know, it gives us more opportunities, I guess, to think about what we can do with some of these funds ongoing and growing.
It is going to some projects such as, how could I say, we do have a third party that's helping us out with the Dross site project, and I believe theirs is around over $300,000 to hire them, and they've been very, very helpful. Orion Management System in helping us out, because I'll be honest with you, when it comes to the technical data on the Dross site, I don't know what parts per million is considered an issue, so they've been helping us out with that. This fund's also going into the Industrial Park Master Development Plan, the the environmental assessment for the land release. So these funds are being used for those other infrastructure plans. We are looking at targeting other large projects in the future that will more benefit aviation. We have made some requests for figuring out the cost for beginning looking at the dump site to the north of the airport, that northern section, because if we get that cleaned up, that's going to provide more additional future aeronautical use. We're also looking at in the future using that for much more larger pavement management practices, such as providing 608 applications, which is almost an asphalt rejuvenator on our larger sections of asphalt on the airfield to keep them lasting longer.
So these funds that are going to these other areas that like the newer ones, the stuff you've recently cited, these are acceptable uses as far as the FAA is concerned? You know, putting the money into the airport per se, and if someone's going to need industrial part, master plan, all that, is that works for them?
That is a part of the FAA process.
Okay.
So they are okay with using that. You can't use those funds to, let's say, build a new rail spur.
Right.
We have to keep that money in line and inbounds to be in compliance with the FAA. And we often, before we use possibly those gray areas, we consult them ahead of time. Before we ever want to step that boundaries. If we're sitting back having a discussion saying, no, this could be a gray area, we often reach out to our local airport district office and say, hey, here's what we're looking at doing. What is your thoughts on this? And they say, no, yes. If you want this, you have to target it towards the aviation side. So they'll rather us reach out to them before we make that step and step into the wrong. Sorry.
Going back, you're showing 8 of the 10 covered units now. Do you know which ones are empty? Because there's 3 that you never see airplanes at.
I can't tell you exactly which one's off the top of my mind. I have been researching a few into those, and especially a couple of aircraft, seeing if they're actually using the facilities or not, from owners that live in Sedona to other areas. So I'm keeping a track of where their aircraft are moving. But we will, if comes around to it, we'll reach out to them and see if they absolutely need those spots or not.
I got to tell you that I landed the other night, and it was so nice to have lights in the shade. I'm really pleased with the lighting. That's been a gigantic improvement. So thank you.
Well, we also have new chains in the area too.
Yeah, how you do?
Hopefully next year we'll knock out the remainder of the chains for for our pilots. We already knocked out the transient area. We've started working on our base pilot area. And then hopefully next year we'll knock that out and everybody will have new chains where it'll last hopefully several more years without rusting. For the budget, so far this year, we're only 0.12%, a little under 1% of the budget being complete. Actually, no correction, it's going to be a little bit under 10%. Sorry about that, I made my math wrong. The budget through this fiscal year of the budget cycle. The revenue as of July 30th, actually should be 31st, is $157,175. Expenditures have been $112,209,000. Breaking out the actual revenue, the airport has a little over $149,000 in revenue, and the industrial park has brought in $7,000 in revenue. Our expenses so far with the airport on the operations budget has been $96,759, and then for the industrial park has been $15,450. They have gone through about 25% of their budget. For a lot of that is for studies and marketings that have been planned in the future. So as soon as the fiscal year started coming up, they started rolling that, getting those projects moving.
Do you have the figures, since we haven't had a meeting since the end of the fiscal year, do you have the final figures for the last year?
I was going to go into that in this next one for the revenues for last year.
Okay.
There is the total revenues over $2 million. For the airport, $1,899,000. For the industrial park, $172,000. We're still trying to close out the remainder of the expenses. So hopefully by next meeting, we'll have that information for you. We're just closing out those last bit of items, and some items we actually had to split, such as some invoices from the draw site because the work was done in last fiscal year and some of the work was done this fiscal year. So we're working with these companies to split out those last projects and get the last fiscal year's expenditures finalized.
Do you have like a more detailed breakdown of the revenue streams for the airport and industrial park?
If we do, we're gonna have to request that from actually I'll have to request that from our finance team because they keep all that information, and a lot of it is, how could I say, one company, it could be multiple forms of revenue from different ways coming in.
I guess I'm more looking at like specific, not necessarily specific companies, but like where our primary sources of revenue are coming from. I remember at one point in time you said something about the storage being one of the largest contributors, but I'm kind of curious as to what some of the other like generalized clumps are, not just the storage.
Yeah, I could see if I could get a breakdown for next meeting on some of those, based it on rent, both business and non-business rents, ground leases, so forth. I'll see if I could get that together for next meeting.
Thank you.
For the actual airport fuel, I put 2022 and 2023 side by side, month by month. So in 2023, we did have an increase in overall fuel sales. We were kind of figuring that with the increase of what appears to be traffic, and we're starting to see a lot more aircraft stop at our fuel farms. So our FBO that has kind of came in, or how can I say, Arizona Aircraft Services that came in a few years back, they have very much improved the customer relationship, and we're starting to see an uptick in customers coming in here. We've also noticed over the past couple of months that one of the FBOs in Havasu has purchased out the other FBO. So we could probably start seeing a little bit of increase in possibly pilots coming over to our airport, because you're not going to have that, how could I say, competition over there directly across the ramp from each other in fuel cells. So we probably going to end up benefiting from that. And our FBO is still very much aware that that they need to be competitive with everybody else. In other words, I'd rather them be able to turn a profit, but keep the fuel as low as possible to bring in more pilots, because we get a little bit more than just the fuel flowage fees. I'm pretty sure they also charge for a little other minor expenses as pilots come in.
How are they determining whether we're maintaining competitiveness with the other airports in the area?
You could go online and you could just search for, let's say, 100 low lead and fuel within 50 miles of Kingman or 100 miles of Kingman. It'll give you the most updated prices that FBOs have published.
They actually have an app on here.
Yeah.
It shows you an aviation map, and you can just look at the airports where you are, and it flags the prices. It's really quick and easy to do, yeah.
Okay, and are we trying to keep ours lower than everyone else, or are we trying to keep it like about the same?
I can't speak really for a private business when it comes to this. They are a private business any more than you can't really go after, your local maverick and tell them to lower or raise their prices. That's completely on their side, so they make that call.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think the airport gets 4 cents per gallon that's sold. Is that correct?
The airport gets 4 cents a gallon, and if I can remember correctly, the last study on fuel flowage fees average is over 10 cents a gallon. But we're kind of locked in that 4 cents till 2029. That was agreement that was put in place before the city took.
So we
had the
actually
airport.
operated a loss on that then?
No. We're not losing any money on it. We just don't charge as much as some other places.
Okay, I misunderstood that then,
Yeah.
so thank you.
That agreement with the fuel flowage fees was made years ago with the KAA, and we're kind of locked into that for a while. Most current. Fuel sales or fuel amounts, there it is for the month of July. Over 5,000 gallons of F-gas and over 11,000 in Jet A, was 17,390 gallons being sold for the month of July. Any other questions regarding the airport reports?
I've got one question, going back to the drainage. Once this drainage gets all put in place, do you think we'll have less water flowing into the D hangars?
No, D hangars are probably going to be like that for a little bit longer. Because that's going to have to require a lot of work to get the D hangars from flooding.
Okay.
And there has been even thoughts of possible places where we can move them in the future into a better area. But for that, when those hangars were constructed, I don't know who really thought of it, but I do understand the reason why they did it, to get hangars out here as soon as possible and as affordable as possible. But having hangars with asphalt and not build to a certain degree or grade is not exactly the best.
Like it would have to be probably a grade or a drain all the way around, or some kind of a graded drain that went somewhere else. That would be a large project, I guess. But
Yeah, that will be extremely expensive.
Yeah.
I have brought this up in the past, and I just got to remember to remind our engineers on it, to not forget about that one. But for those actual drains, if you actually do build drains there, you're going to have to connect them towards the A, B, and C hangars, and all those drains have already been engineered to take a certain amount, so we don't know if that's going to overpower that system or not. Because keep in mind, that drainage system empties out over at the northern end of the airport, and it thus goes into the northern section towards the freeze wash, and then empties further out into, or goes underneath the BNSF rail system. So that all that stuff has to be calculated when we do this. It may just end up being something to where we say, hey, what about doing something to kind of raise the interior up a little bit? Maybe remove the asphalt, add concrete in, but that creates joints. So there's a lot of questions going back and forth on this.
So I actually have a couple more questions. Are there any significant financial challenges that are coming up or that we should be aware of?
Nothing significant financial at this time. We are still turning a profit at this time. It's just really planning these projects for far enough out and ahead to where we still have enough money in the bank. Should we have something that bad pops up and we have to get it addressed as soon as possible, we are in that position.
Speaking of that, do you know how much money we do have in the bank?
Not right now, not off the top of my head with all the encumbrances for this fiscal year
Do you
coming
have an
up.
approximate?
I really don't want to give an
Within
approximate.
100,000?
Yeah, that's not happening. But I can't speak to Tina, Tina or Wendy about getting that for next meeting.
That'd be nice. I think we originally asked for that at every meeting, but
No, we usually give it about once a year. I think I gave it out towards the beginning of last year's fiscal year. We could do that again.
thank you.
Another question I have is, are there any new technologies or systems that we should be considering for smoother operations?
We did receive bids back for a virtual tower system. And we're trying to line that up to get a little, how could I say, review from both the competitors that bid on it and make a determination which will be better for the airport. Each one has a kind of a little bit different of a function than the other. One apparently is very helpful from the standpoint of watching your pavement maintenance. It's all going to cost, it costs a lot more. Well, not a lot more. It's going to cost a lot more, but it does a little bit more. And including, it could even keep track of where aircraft are going, where they're parking, who's using our airport. So we're trying to line up a meeting where we get demonstrations with a kind of a group to go ahead and select one.
So is this something that is going to cost us less in the long run to operate than it would be to purchase it, or how's that going to work?
No, you have to. You're going to have to work with the companies that do this because these are ADSB systems. You have to get permission from the FAA to get this information. And then it's very complex and it ties into a nationwide system. Some of these you could see, how could I say, just strictly in the Kingman area, but if you zoom out, you could see every aircraft where the systems are based. They often have other contracts with Department of Homeland Security, FAA, ports, and so forth. So it's pretty extensive.
We have a number of aircraft that are not ADSB equipped as well, so it won't count them.
Yeah, if those are going to have to be the ones that actually fall through the system. The other systems that we do look at, they're just not justifying the price. That's if the aircraft goes in front of a camera and takes a snapshot of their IN number. It doesn't tell you where they're taxiing unless you want to constantly install multiple cameras. Those companies also, on the other hand, they get their revenue from the billing of landing fees, and they get a percentage of it. And when they found out what our operational capacity is, they sat back and said, that doesn't even justify us, sorry, but we're not going to be able to service your airport.
I have a question. I'm not sure how exactly this would work, but you're not suggesting that the ADSB system would be required in our area?
No, that's strictly up to the pilot's discretion. We cannot require that. It really helps us out with other aircraft that move in and move out of the area. Just the benefits of the system with the aircraft that do have ADSB for helping the airport project runway usage, aircraft categories that land here to which taxiways or runways are taking the most beating, and we may need to sit back and say, okay, we need a plan of possibly, we've had this many regional jets land on this section of the runway, we may need a plan to project future maintenance a little bit sooner on that portion of the runway. But no, we cannot tell pilots, that's actually the FAA's job with their rules of which aircraft have ADSBs and which ones do not.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Apparently not. Thank you.
Welcome.
Incidentally, it looks like you've got some things to address for the next meeting.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Councilman Savage. Glad to be here. Terry Curtis, Economic Development. Sure. I did submit my report with the agenda, so I'm going to kind of briefly go through a little bit of the items that are on there. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop me, or we can go back to one of those items, okay? InSteel is in the process of expanding their operation. They've brought in new equipment. That equipment's been coming over from Austria in containers. There was 31 total coming in from being shipped in to the ports and being transported out here. So they're slowly but surely putting all the equipment together, and we should see them being up and operational soon. Don't have a final date on that, but that's been moving along. On our Choose Kingman website, we've done new testimonials to keep it fresh and keep it looking. We've included several of the aeronautical companies on those testimonials. We've had quite a few prospects that we've been talking to. We've submitted project information forms called PIFs to the Arizona Commerce Authority, multiple projects, and we've done some site tours. We do not have anything under contract right at the moment, but we're hopeful that we're gonna get something soon. So we just keep plugging away and making sure that we get the information out there. We also have completed the 2022 Economic Impact Report that you can find on our website, the Choose Kingman website. It's one of the organizational pieces of material. In addition to that, we have the 2022 Economic Development Annual Report, which has been finalized. I do believe that I got all of you guys a copy of that, and I set it down. So in addition to that, we have 2 marketing pieces that we've just finished printing, and it's helping with us being able to get our story out there just a little bit more. We've been producing some ads for the Kingman Daily Miner, and we've been partnering with the Small Business Development Center that's run out of Mojave Community College on those ads. The first 2 were the graduation tab, and then the second one was Meet Your Merchant. I can't remember what the third one is, but that's coming up. We've been working on a rail economic impact report to determine how much the rail brings in for the industrial park, and how that impacts maybe possibly our future with bringing more companies in. We're hoping that that makes just a difference there. Economic Strengths Program Grant was a grant that we applied for to pave Transport Way and Government Way. We have completed that, submitted that, and we're just waiting to hear back from the Arizona Commerce Authority on whether or not we won that award on that grant. Should be any time now. We're expecting that. They did not give us a definitive time frame on that.
Where are those funds? Is there matching funds?
Matching funds are coming from Mojave County.
Okay.
We also put in for an I-40 Trade Port Corridor Accelerator designation. I talked a little bit about this the last time we were here, I believe. And what this is a grant with the U.S. Department of Transportation that designates us as a trade port corridor. This comes out from the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach and goes all the way through out to eventually Amarillo, Texas, as a designated corridor for transportation. Part of this is for the Green Energy Initiative, and should we win this and this come through, there's opportunities for applying for different grants and having some successes that way with working with different partners. In this grant itself, we're working with individuals that are private developers, as well as Winslow, Arizona, and the counties between our border and going into Albuquerque. There's 2 different counties. We're working with those governments as well as Albuquerque. So we're expecting to hear from that as soon as possible too. The U.S. Department of Transportation got an overwhelming response. So they've just had a little difficult time deciding who's going to get the funds or the designation and funds versus who's not.
If we do get those funds, what does that mean? What happens
You
at
know,
that point?
I apologize. I do not know the answer to that, but I do know this much. If we get designated that way, with that designation will come the opportunity to apply for more grants.
Okay.
And with that in mind, we will have to, there's just opportunities to expand the industrial park, be more, to develop a truck modality portion where the trucks can come in and get fuel up with green energy fueling, hydrogen fuel, or battery operated electric fueling.
Like charging facilities.
Charging
okay.
cells, yes,
Yeah.
sorry. And so there's gonna be some things that we're gonna have to look at down the road, but we have some developers that are in this group, don't know if they're gonna be able to help us, don't know if this is all gonna happen, but why would they be involved? So I'm hoping.
Do we have to, are we competing with other places along I-40 this way?
Not
or-
along the I-40, but other places have, so this was a accelerator grant to basically promote green energy.
Okay.
So there's places all across the United States that are competing for this grant and designation.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any specific like industries or sectors that we're looking at to attract to this area? Or are we like technology? I know agriculture was a big kind of taboo thing. We got the INA in place a few months back, but is there anything we're looking at specifically to bring here?
We tend to be more advanced manufacturing here, and we do have the Mojave Community College that's coming in to train, and it will be an advanced manufacturing training facility. They hope to be up and running somewhere around the fall of 2025. As far as triggering or reaching out, some of these PIFs, the project information forms that we filled out, were for technology. So we are looking at those things and submitting our bid along with it. Sometimes the ones that have come, a couple of the ones that have come in have had very high water usage to be able to produce the items that they have. I don't know what the process is that causes that. Definitely the hydrogen fueling, that's something that's there that can be, there's 2 different ways to look at it. One is with the old school of the way that they've produced it in the past, and then there's some new technologies that are bringing it along for the cooling of the water and the process where they're not using as much water.
So kind of on the other end of what he's asking, I guess, we're not wanting to attract or accept high water use companies. That's the
Correct.
direction we're not going.
Correct.
Okay.
We have not applied, we get a lot of those requests and we don't always submit on them. The ones that are very, very high water usage, we do not.
Do we have a threshold for what that is?
We have a project analysis of where we input the amount of water that they're requesting and what capital expenditure they're going to put in, how many jobs they're going to provide, and what the average median salary that they are looking to do. And if that looks okay, then it has to go to another phase We're waiting, I believe the last I heard is that we are gonna be waiting for a set of procedures to be taken care of and set up so that we know where our lines are. Right now,
So
right,
there's not like a formula or anything right now?
we can look at it and say, we would make money in this issue, even if they're a high user, but do we want to, do we have the capacity is the better question. And with that in mind, we've been sending them out to different divisions that we have to check in with within the city to see if that's feasible or not. Okay. We've also been working on a promotional video for the industrial park and airport. That should be coming up here in the next month. Actually, in October, we're gonna do the finalization of that and do some filming and interviewing with different people. This will go out to hopefully allow people to see what we have to offer in the industrial park and the airport side of things. So we're gonna cover both. And just a note of something that that the Dross project kind of brought up is the fact that we started working with Patriot Rail back a while ago to get that transloading area done. Had we not done that, the Dross project would have cost us a lot more money. So it saved us money by being ahead of that. So that's pretty much my report. Do you guys have any questions?
Are there any infrastructural challenges or needs for the industrial park?
Drainage is always a problem, but we're working on those things and it's coming out and
Terry, I will say this, over the past year and a half, 2 years, the county has been very responsive in getting into the park and helping clean up. It is, for us, for the airport, we can only use our funds for so much outside of the fence line, to where we cannot go into and build drainage or retention for another company that you can't use the funds for that. But the county is understanding on that, and whenever we have a major storm event, they're out there now very rapidly cleaning it up and getting it improved again. Hopefully with the stormwater study on the air side, we could use that to determine where we can improve drainage on the air side, and whenever we improve on the air side, obviously it's going to benefit the ones downhill from us, which are those companies inside the industrial park. And including the actual drainage for the industrial park master development plan that's going to help out those tenants on the southern side of the current park.
immensely. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to announcements by commission members. John, do you have anything?
I do not. Thank you.
Vice Chairman, do you have anything?
Nothing. Nope.
I'm looking forward to the completion of the downtown project.
Oh,
I know it just started. I saw the road tore up, and I'm like, oh yes, here we go.
I'm gonna go visit it after this meeting, actually, to go walk it around and see what it looks like. If you want to, we can go down there and check it out.
Commissioner Gerlach, do you have anything?
Just that on behalf of the museum group, I'm working with the EAA on sponsoring the B25 in November.
Yeah.
And we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, those of you that don't know, the Experimental Aircraft Association National owns a B-25, the Berlin Express, and it's going to be here for tours and purchase flights November 18th, and it'll be here through the week. So if you're interested in aviation from World War II, I would strongly encourage you to come out and look at this piece of history. I'm glad you mentioned that. If you didn't, I was going to. And anything else, Commissioner Gerlach?
Trying to find the mute button. No, but thank you very much.
Okay. I just got back from a trip to AirVenture, which is EAA's annual air show. It's the largest air show in the world. I was only one of 677,000 people that were there, but it was outstanding. And if you are an aviation enthusiast at all, I would strongly encourage you to attend at least once in your life. I know that Commissioner Stutzman's been there twice. I've been there twice. You been there?
A long time ago, yes, once.
Once. So, Commissioner Gerlach, have you attended? Never? Well, you will, I'm sure. And I can't encourage anybody enough to attend. If there's nothing else, I think we can adjourn this meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Do you want to vote on it?
Yeah, we can vote on it, sure. Let's vote on it. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
You got a second?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
There we go.
Okay, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? I think it carries, ayes have it.
Now you get the